welcome. And wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome and wanted here today and always. We're so happy to have you here.
All who are thirsty for justice, all who are thirsty for peace, all who are thirsty for peace, for justice, come to the water of life. All who are thirsty for mercy, and all who are thirsty for love, all who are thirsty for love, for mercy, come to the water of life. All who are thirsty for healing, all who are thirsty for touch, all who are thirsty for touch, for healing, come to the water of life. All who are thirsty for beauty, all who are thirsty for truth, all who are thirsty for truth, for beauty, come to the water of life. And all who are thirsty for freedom, all who are thirsty for hope, all who are thirsty for hope, for freedom, come to the water of life. All who are thirsty for laughter, all who are thirsty for joy, all who are thirsty for joy, for laughter, come to the water of life.
And giving strength, love. May we be
fruitful soil for growing justice and knowing peace.
Come. Praise. God. Who is enough for all. Let us sing
Songs of joy, let us worship and work for peace.
For the children's moment today, we're going to be painting, we're going to be making handprint trees, and then we'll be reading some books about peace. And then we'll do something with the handprint trees once they dry to spread peace within the community.
Great is your faithfulness. pardon for sin and a peace so enduring, your own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is your faithfulness, great is your faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, your hand hath provided. Great is your faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
Let us take a moment in silence while we take a deep breath in. You feel the Spirit move through us and in us as we breathe in and out. Knowing, Father and Mother of us all, the Spirit that comes to us this morning across the miles and even with those that are here that we can touch. We thank you for this holy ground upon which we can stand. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto thee. You have heard our petitions and our requests and our gratitudes and our excitement for weddings and sadness for death, as that circle of life just continues to go. Bless our children that are here this morning. It is so awesome to hear their sounds of joy and their pattering feet. Bless the teacher that is with them. Open our ears that we may hear the words this morning that we have come to hear. In your name we ask, amen.
Lead us from death to life, from falsehood to truth, from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead us from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts, let peace fill our world, let peace fill our universe. Still all the angry cries, still all the angry guns, still now your people die, their sons and daughters. Let justice roll, let mercy pour down. Come and teach us your way of compassion. Lead us from death to life, from falsehood to truth, from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead us from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts, let peace fill our world, let peace fill our universe. So many lonely hearts, so many broken lives, longing for love to break into their anguish. Come teach us love, come teach us peace. Come and teach us your way of compassion. from death to life, from falsehood to truth, from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead us from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts. Let peace fill our world. Let peace fill our universe. Let justice ever roll. Let mercy fill the earth. Let us begin to grow into your people. We can be love. We can bring peace. We can still be your way of compassion. Lead us from death to life, from falsehood to truth, from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead us from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts. Let peace fill our world. Let peace fill our universe.
Creator Spirit, come to us. We lift our song of love and trust. With open hearts we come to you. Anticipate your varied mood. Amen.
Hey, this morning, I'm going to share with you, I was thinking about how all these themes are going together. We have a lot going on right now in our world and in our sacred world. And this past week, September 17th, was the anniversary date, what in some churches they call a feast day, the anniversary date of Hildegard of Bingen. I mean, she was from Bingen, Germany. Her name was Hildegard. And she is a saint. In fact, she is called a doctor of the Roman Catholic Church. And I'm going to explain a little more about that. I want to tell you a little bit about her before I read the selections, share the selections, the quotes from her. Otherwise, you have no context from which she speaks. Hildegard was a polymath. Did you ever hear that word before? I always thought it was somebody who knew how to do all kinds of math, but it's not. A polymath is a person who excels in many major areas. So Hildegard, and I'm going to tell you something about her childhood because that's amazing, and more of it will come out in the sermon this morning. But I want you to know who is speaking to you in these quotes. She wrote some of the first operas ever. Now you got to get an idea when this woman lived. She lived in, and I can never remember, so I have to keep checking because it's so long ago. She was born in 1098, and they don't know when her birthday was. But they know she was born in 1098. She died September 17th, and that's why we're celebrating this feast day, the day of remembering her, in the year 1179. She lived to be 81 years old. For that time, that was amazing. I mean, you hear a little more about her, you'll see why it was even more amazing for Hildegard. So this woman, during those centuries, was writing music that was not even conceived of yet. What they had was Gregorian chant, but she wasn't schooled in anything because women weren't schooled. So she just wrote music. And guess what? It exceeded everything that had been created so far. She didn't even know that. Okay? She had visions from the time she was 5 years old. She had visions. It scared her parents so much that they didn't know what to do with her. They didn't understand what was happening. She was the 10th child in the family. She was 8 years old. You know what it means to tithe? To give 1/10? They tithed Hildegard to the church. They gave her to the monastery. She was 8 years old. She became a medical wizard. She had, in the convent where she lived at the monastery, she would grow all kinds of herbs and she would learn how to use them. Remember, they didn't know this stuff yet. She was learning it. She became known as one of the apothecaries. People would come from all over to go see Hildegard because she knew how to medicate them. She's thought of as the founder of German alternative medicine. What else? I'm trying to remember all the other things she did. She was amazing with recipes. She would use all these things that she learned. She had a favorite cookie that I'm not sure what she put in it. There is a recipe out there, but it was to calm them. They were told they had to eat 2 cookies before bed every night. She learned to cook with spelt. She cooked amazing breads out of spelt. There's still recipes out there of all these amazing recipes that were for nutrition and health that Hildegard. There's all kinds of cookbooks for Hildegard. You can look and find them. She was a proponent of beer as a medicine because beer in reasonable quantities has many good properties. She would say, Sharif Siam Dibat, drink beer for health. So some of the other quotes that I want to share with you now that you know a little bit about who this Hildegard is. I'm quoting, God has arranged everything in the universe in consideration of everything else. Every creature is a glittering, glistening mirror of divinity. I, God, am in your midst. Whoever knows me can never fall, not in the heights, nor in the depths, nor in the breadths. For I am love, which the vast expanses of evil can never still. Our souls should be like a transparent crystal through which God can be perceived. The last quote from Hildegard, I am the fiery life of the essence of God. I am the flame above the beauty in the fields. I shine in the waters. I burn in the sun, the moon, and the stars. And with the airy wind, I quicken all things vitally by an unseen, all-sustaining life. So when Hildegard is saying all of these things, she's inviting all of us to say them with her. She believes all of this to be true of every one of us, not just herself. I'm sharing with you something that in part was prepared for the celebration of her feast day this past week. There was the annual pilgrimage was this weekend. It's actually held in Bingen, Germany because of COVID last year. And this year, it's all been done virtually. So I was one of the keynotes starting the second day of talks on Hildegard yesterday. And this is portions of that message. I thought you might enjoy a different experience. So isn't it interesting how much you can learn from what others say about you, about the story they believe you are? We are each a story. I wonder about Hildegard. I see myself in her and I see her in me. Today, I'm going to share moments of our lives that seem to have some creative connection, simply noticing and wondering. It's one thing to learn about someone like Hildegard. It's quite another to step into her world and to live with her, or to allow her to step into your life and live with you. I wonder about Hildegard. I learned when first studying transactional analysis over 50 years ago, each of us creates a life script. It's much like a playwright who creates a script for each character in a play. We create this script, every one of us does this, from the relationships, interactions, the tones of voices that are around us when we're in utero or when we're children, the quality of love and compassion or the lack of love and compassion that we experience. Literally everything that we encounter, especially as little ones, we take it all in and we store it away, even if nonverbal. We begin to write our life script, and each one of us does this individually and uniquely. So it's really important, the atmosphere that we create in families and the friends who are around our children. But alongside with this life script, each one of us also has deep in our souls a knowing of the sacred. It just comes with the human package because we are of the divine. We are made in the image and the likeness. But within us, even though sometimes our culture makes us crazy and the messages that we get aren't honoring of the sacred, we know deep inside the earth is sacred. We know that humans are sacred. We know the cosmos is sacred. All sacred, all imbued with divine light. It's all sacred because it's all divinely created. But sometimes the story gets confusing if our life script is in opposition with the sacred. So here's just a simple example to show you how sometimes this happens. A child is walking with her father. Her father takes out a piece of gum, throws the wrapper on the ground. The little one's confused. She looks at her adult. She looks at the paper. She stoops to pick it up. And daddy says, no, don't touch that. It's dirty. Here's this child. My beautiful earth. I'm supposed to keep it clean. Daddy says, no. So now you have a life script and the sacred within in conflict. What does that do to that child's life script? I'm going to let you ponder that. She can make many choices of what to do with that. Ponder it. So what learning and message she's going to create in the midst of that confusing moment could affect her for the rest of her life. So I wonder about Hildegard. As children, we begin to store thoughts and memories in our life script. And then one day we realize if we're open to our inner knowing, we can make choices about the choices we held on to forming our life script. It isn't easy to change the rules of our life game, even though we've written those rules, because we've also cemented them deeply into the core of who we are. So I wonder about Hildegard, the 10th child, the tithe, only 8 years old, packed up, taken and left, separated from family and friends, a sickly child, a child who has figured out by the age of 7 and tucked it away in her life script that the vision she thought everyone saw, now she knows isn't the case. Her parents have hushed her up. They don't know what to do with this child. But they are a noble family. They'll do what the noble family thing. They'll give their daughter to the monastery along with a generous dowry. They know that Yuta will be there to look after their little one. They won't have to deal with their fear of embarrassment anymore, that she might come up with this talk of visions. I wonder about Hildegard. Was this a confusing time for her? She kept her sacred inner life inner. She didn't seem comfortable sharing her experiences. And I didn't realize until just recently when I was doing research for this, that she didn't share any of her visions, any of the things, the sacred things that were coming to her. She never shared them until early in her 40s. Now look at what that life script did to this woman. She was having visions and inner communications from the time she was 5 years old. She didn't talk about them until she was in her early 40s. And she only did it because she felt the divine insisting that she must share. Wow. I wonder about Hildegard. And then I saw patterns in how our lives, your life and my life, they've touched and maybe even overlapped. You see, I tried for years, for over 20 years, probably 30, to write a book to share my visions. And I couldn't do it. They felt so personal. And I was afraid that others would think I was crazy. You know, in our society, if you see visions, they could lock you up. They have labels for people who see visions. I seldom shared my inner life in inner relationships with anyone. I had a number of profound experiences and still do. I wished for someone I could talk to. I didn't feel safe. Neither did Hildegard. So I wonder about him. I sat in that church in Eibingen, Germany, listening to her Benedictine sisters chanting, and I gazed at a statue of her holding her abbess staff, reflecting on my personal journey. I taught in a Catholic high school. I worked as a liturgical music director for a local church. There was a seminarian in residence there with us. He didn't like me. I think he felt threatened by the role I was permitted at the church. I held a key position as liturgical music director, very much a priestly role. I had strong influence on the worship, the music, and the rituals. There were times I brought up the issue of women's ordination while enjoying an evening meal with the priest at the parsonage. Bent out of shape is one way to describe his reaction. He would immediately throw canon law at me, thinking I would accept my lesser position because a bunch of men wrote a law. One evening while at dinner, I shared my decision with the senior pastor. I had decided to leave my position at the church. I was surprised by the young seminarian's reaction. He uttered a troubled sigh. This is really going to upset the congregation. I thought he'd be relieved with my decision. He exclaimed, the congregation is going to have a difficult time if you leave. I looked at him and I asked, why? And he said, because when you leave, it's like one of the priests leaving. I'll let you guess what I said. I wonder about Hildegard. Hildegard, how would your life have been different if you had chosen priesthood? Or did you? I just saw her standing there with a bishop's crook. So in my younger years, I struggled through grade school, competing with the boys who were treated differently than I was. And I felt the difference. I knew I was called to priesthood. In the third grade, I'll never forget this. It's so alive in my memory. It was a cold February morning. We were standing outside, all my classmates, and we were just little kids, third grade. We were huddled around this visiting missionary priest. And I looked up at him. I'll never forget his gray eyes. And I was so excited to be able to talk to him. And I said, someday, Father, I'm going to be a priest just like you. And he looked down at me and he said, oh, honey, you can't do that, but you could be a sister. I repeated my deepest desire. No, Father, no. I want to be a priest just like you. And again, with more strength this time, he said, honey, you can't do that, but you can be a sister. Now my little frustration heightened. And he just simply wasn't getting it. And I could feel my frustration escalating into anger. And I turned away from him and I stomped my foot and I gritted my teeth and I clutched my small fist. And I said with more force than I thought I had, no, Father, I'm going to be a priest just like you. And I walked away. I wonder about Hildegard. Hildegard, what was it like growing up in that cell attached to the men's monastery with just a one-room cell is where they lived? You were so close to the monks, but so separate. What was it like? What did your young heart long for? Were you happy there? Did you want out? Did you long for more? Did you long for priesthood, Hildegard? Well, I learned that I couldn't fight them. It was a huge wall made of very tall men, and I was very small. I couldn't do it. I was guided to become a sister of the Holy Humility of Mary, and I did. I chose to work on our convent farm. I loved creation. I wrote music, like Hildegard, in praise, not as gorgeous as hers, of course, but like Hildegard, I wrote music. That was a way that my soul was expressing praise for the richness of creation all around me. I was a good nun, but I was in the wrong place, and I knew it. After 5 beautiful and terrible years, I simply walked away. My soul was so lost, so empty. I didn't belong anywhere. I was desolate. After some years, I took a teaching position in a Catholic girls' high school. I was teaching choir and religion. And I told these impressionable young women that one day I would invite them to my ordination. Talk about the spirit hammering a person. Did you notice I never gave it up after all the abuse? Well, the next day, I was asked to the principal's office. I was given a choice. Retract my ordination statement because it was against the rules of the church for women to be ordained, or be relieved of my position at the school. I stood firm. I couldn't live a lie. I didn't have a clue to how my life would unfold. I knew in my core that I could not retract that statement. It was one of those God statements, like a promise. I could feel its solemnity, something that I didn't have a clue how it could ever happen, unfold in my life, but somehow I just couldn't say it wasn't true, because for me, it was. I was fired. And not only was I fired from the high school, as the word spread, I was well known in the Catholic community because I did music in many churches. I was banned from all the churches. I wonder about Hildegard. Hildegard, you were in the faces of so many tall men in the church. How did you stand up to them? What did it feel like to take them on? Did you feel that you were helpless and fighting a never-ending battle? Where did you find the stamina to stand firm? Like you, Hildegard, I find myself always in the face of patriarchy and hierarchy. Did you ever think of giving up? I wonder about Hildegard. Gazing at her statue, holding that abbess staff, that crozier, I felt our kinship. She was the first monastic abbess, the first woman ever to have the equivalent to a bishop. This is years later now. I had been consecrated bishop in 2004 on the feast of St. Mary Magdalene. I founded an order of holy wisdom in Berkeley, California, and I was their abbess. I looked at Hildegard. I felt this kindred spirit with this ageless woman who knew the struggle to hold that crozier. Well, I refused to embrace the traditional crozier when I was consecrated bishop because it represents a shepherd's crook, a hook, because of the implications of hooking something and pulling it in. To me, that was kind of violent. I didn't want to hold a crozier. I wanted a different kind of staff, a different message. My staff would be more like Gandalf's, you know, Harry Potter's wizard mentor, one that would shine out to touch everyone, to invite with golden light, the allurement of beauty. I like to think if Hildegard were here today, she would have made a similar choice. I wonder about Hildegard. A few years ago, I was with Matt Fox accompanying graduates and students of creation spirituality on our pilgrimage to Bingen, the Rhine, the lands where Hildegard lived, walked, thrived, and survived. The pilgrimage was organized by our graduates of the Creation Spirituality Doctoral Program. Reverend Fox had designed the program and he had invited me to co-direct the program. Here we were sharing amazing Hildegard with our grads, an adventure in itself. We were expecting aha and awe moments as we learned from the sacred earth, this space that still today vibrates with Hildegard's energy. We had no way to know that more awaited us. There was a man in Bingen collecting information and filming and interviewing and searching and researching, discovering all that he could about this saint, the Sibyl of the Rhine, they called her. He tells of her coaxing and luring him to get to know her. He was in love with this, he called her the unruly mystic. He was passionate about her. Hildegard needed him. He could feel it. She needed him to do this for her, to learn all he could about her life and create a documentary. He was a filmmaker. To share her and the amazing ways she touched the earth and still continues. I wonder about Hildegard. So Hildegard, did you have this all planned? It's a bit uncanny that we happened to be there the same days that Michael Conti was there in Bingen, Germany. Do you continue to create through Michael Conti, through Carol Vaccarello, through Matthew Fox, through all of us gathered here, through all who are witnessing these talks? Michael, seizing the moment, requested to interview Matt Fox and me and some others from our group, gathering footage for his budding documentary. At first, I was a little put off by all the cameras and the lights in the interview chair. Kind of felt like the principal's office, you know. But in my spiritual practice, I always say yes. So I moved past the equipment. I sat down and I heard Michael's voice. I experienced his questions, his direct, clear gentleness, and I knew his heart. When I returned home to Ohio, it was a few weeks later, I got a phone call from Michael Conti, who lives in Boulder, Colorado. I was very surprised and curious. He asked if I remembered him. I said, of course, what's up? What I heard him say stopped me for a moment. Carol, you are a modern day Hildegard. I'd like to come to Medina, Ohio to follow you around for a couple of days. Well, now that was an interesting request. I was touched by Michael, the searcher, the seeker after Hildegard then and now, and I was humbled and a bit shaken by his comment. I couldn't imagine what he was imagining. Since I'm a person who believes in the power of saying yes, I welcomed his visit. He wanted to see the church where I pastored. He saw the labyrinth that we created in the center of the gathering space. It was a design grounded in the form of a heart. The church's name was Heart Space. The labyrinthian design came to me in a dream, a vision. I shared it with the members. All agreed that we needed to create it and place it at the heart of our gathering space, and we did. Now here's Michael, filming me standing there telling about it, and then kneeling in the center of the heart space while thinking thoughts of a modern day Hildegard. Fast forward. Michael invited me to speak as one of the opening speakers at the conference this weekend. And when he asked me, I said to him, after he told me the lineup of speakers that he had, I said, Michael, these people that you have coming, they're all scholars on Hildegard. They know her story in minute detail. What could I possibly add to that? I know and love her. I know I have a relationship with her, but I certainly can't add anything to what they're going to share. He said, no, I don't want you to. I said, then what do you want me to talk about? He said, I want you to talk about your connection and how you're connected in creativity, how you embody her spirit. Well, I have learned that creativity takes profound bravery and immense courage. I wonder about Hildegard. She lived into, through, and past her life script. She outgrew it. She learned to create her script as she journeyed. There was no way her parents or Utah or her sisters could help her. She no longer knew where or who she was scripted to be. She learned that she was writing her life as she lived it. She discovered a clear, clean slate of possibility. She was creating, listen to this, she was creating a woman like no one had ever encountered. That was her foundational act of creativity. From a sickly child, robbed of a childhood, locked away in a cell, deprived of a family, she created a woman who knew no bounds. Was it because she was so bound by the life script of her childhood? Is it possible that her confining childhood made way for her to create a new life with new choices? What we know is that she was like a molten fireball that eventually exploded, allowing creativity to pour through her and out of her. Everything she touched radiated beauty, glowed with her inner light. She spoke with definitive precision. She knew her mind. She developed a sense of morality different from the church to which she was espoused. She terrified some. She elated others. She was controversial, yet well-grounded, pushing and pulling when she believed that she was being called by the divine to take action. She was highly intuitive. She learned to open all channels to receive divine messages through visions, music, art, daily encounters, letters that she authored. She learned that she had outgrown her script. She was a ball of fire burning and cleansing the old, becoming and creating new pathways, new thinking, and new possibilities. I wonder about you, Hildegard. Did you know, Hildegard, did you know that creativity was your essential self? Did you know that you were a co-creative act with the Creator? That all you shared was a product of divine essence in you? You learned to co-create with the Creator. You learned and you started your co-creation with yourself. That's it. That's it. That's what I learned from doing this whole message. It's time for every one of us to look at our life script, to review it, to take inventory on those choices and make choices, if it's necessary, to make new choices to amend those original choices. What if she had stayed this little bound up child? Oh my goodness, no. Are we doing that? It's time for us to show up. And speaking of showing up, I want to share with you 2 ways that Hildegard's been showing up for me personally in the recent months. I take advanced courses in medical intuition, and I was really surprised when the instructor invited us to take a quiet time and go into meditation. This is a public course, okay? To go into meditation and to invite a spirit helper, some essence and spirit, to be our guide through the medical intuitive practices that we do. So, okay, so I did that. I went into meditation and I was amazed as soon as I put out the call. First time ever this has happened, Hildegard was standing there. I went, oh my gosh, who would want anybody but Hildegard? And there she was, offering herself to be my guide through all the medical intuitive work that I do. And then another thing happened. I always do night prayers, even before COVID. I always do my night prayer. But since COVID, I've been asked by the angels to do a unique night prayer. And I think that there's other light workers around the planet. I know they're doing this too. And everybody I tell about it, I invite you all to do it. The more of us that do it, the better it is for the planet. And here's what we do. As soon as I get ready to start the night prayer, my team of spirits come, the angels, and you all have angels. Even if you don't know them, invite them. They're there. They're there. Invite your angels. And then they said to me, it's time to invite the ancestors. I said, okay. So when I put out a call to the ancestors, I was surprised by who showed up. People I wasn't even sure I knew. First was Bearhart, my medicine teacher, Native American. And he was a healer. I watched him do psychic surgery. I saw him heal people. He taught me by showing. Hildegard showed up. I went, oh my gosh, Hildegard's here. Then I was really surprised. I had to go do research because I knew their names, but I didn't know very much about them. I'm sure you'll recognize their names. Albert Schweitzer showed up. And I think his first name is John. Is it John Salk? That's it. What is it? Jonas. Okay. Jonas Salk. Right. Okay. So amazing. Those 4 ancestors showed up to do what? To go with us around the globe, carrying compassion and healing for people with COVID and any other illness. And what we do is we have this huge, this is what they show me. There's this huge energetic blanket of rainbow colors and gold sprinkles. And we literally pull it around the globe and we wrap it and we snug it tight because it's got healing energy and compassion. Anybody can do this. All you have to do is pray and send out the intention. We do it every night, and Hildegard showed up. So, to call this to a close, Hildegard and energies like hers, we need to learn about and follow around. And we need to let them into our lives to be here, to help us. They're out there, not very far away, perhaps standing right next to you now. Just because you can't see them doesn't mean they're not here. They want to help us. And if ever in our lives we needed help as a global community, it is now. It is now. I'm chuckling at the children because I'm thinking, isn't this a God moment? We're talking about the severity of our global condition, and our children are elated with joy. Isn't that a message for us? Isn't that a message for us? Isn't that message. Amen.
We are not our own, earth warms us, human needs or nature's growing vine, fruit of many generations, seeds of life divine. We are not alone, earth names us, past and present, peoples near and far, family and friends and strangers, show us who we are. Through our human life, God finds us, dying, living, love is fully known, and in bread and wine reminds us we are not our own. Therefore let us make thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth and all things living liturgies of care. And if love's encounters lead us on a way uncertain and unknown, all the saints with prayer surround us, we are not alone. Let us be a house of welcome, living stone upholding living stone, gladly showing all our neighbors we are not alone.
In the way that we share the benediction together, I ask that you remember, recall, bring to mind that when we do this, we ask the divine in the whole universe to allow the energy of grace to come through us as we share with our hands the sending of the divine. This is much like what I do in the evening prayer. So just sharing the divine through our outstretched palms. Taking a nice, deep, gentle breath, knowing that we're praying with God and God in us. And our intention, you can set your intention to pray for all the many places in this globe that need our prayer attention right now. Be faraway places. It can be Washington, D.C. It can be right here in local community. Just to send the intention of sending love, compassion, peace, to the march, bringing up issues of freedoms in Texas. Pray that hardened hearts be softened. And to send the prayer that Mother Teresa taught us, you can't win peace by fighting wars. You can only win peace by fighting peace, by being peace. So sharing this deepest intent as we, even if we don't feel it, we call it, And it's happening, the experience of divine grace flowing through us because it's a free gift. And we share it with others. Begin to imagine the world as you would love it to be for our children. No deep mystery, divine light. Bring your palms now to your own heart center to include yourself in this prayer for healing and peace. For the spirit that is good, holding us all together in the great divine embrace. Through the teachings of our brother Jesus, we have grateful hearts. Amen.